What's something that as a non-American you will never understand? Why public toilets have this little gap between the doors that let people make eye contact with you when you know taking a crap, so they can catch you doing drugs or gay sex in there. And no, I'm not kidding. That's why the gaps exist. Also, so homeless people can't use them to sleep. Seriously. The importance sports have in college. In school in general really. My high school built an entire complex for our soccer, football, and football teams, American football. But our choir department didn't have enough funding to have one concert. Full contact choir would be a game changer. Homecoming. Lol. Homecoming is a dedicated, American, football game intended to invite previous alumni back home to watch a football game. It is usually a game where the home team is expected to win, so it's fun to watch. Many schools hold their class reunions on homecoming weekend, so at the school my hubs was a football coach, they'd have the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, 40-year, and 50-year class reunions that weekend, and they'd all go to the football game to support the team and to see old classmates. Homecoming as a HS student involves a dance after the game. There is also usually a court where popular kids get nominated and recognized for their achievement/niceness. The girls chosen get all dressed up, arms escorted out by their fathers, and one senior girl is crowned homecoming queen. TBH, I find the HS student part of homecoming super weird, but I'm all about a dance and the chance to get all dressed up. Homecoming week is usually fun for the whole community. The alumni get to see old friends, the football team gets a little extra support, the HS kids get a fun week of dress up days and a dance that weekend. Oh, and there's usually a parade that involves the football team, the marching band, the homecoming court, and floats from the local community. The traditions will vary from school to school and state to state, but that's the general idea. As a non-American, this is the best explanation I've ever seen. Thank you. I definitely thought it was something like prom, but I'm September, like a pre or post prom. Hoas. They aren't really a thing where I am, and it baffles me that people don't have permission to do certain things to their own homes. I've never lived in a hoa neighborhood, and honestly, I would never want to. I hate the idea of someone threatening to kick me out of the home I bought because my yard wasn't mowed a certain way or a friend parked their car in my driveway. It's usually run by some old ass dinosaur with a power complex. Not to mention they come from racist backgrounds. I don't want to be told what to do by a racist old hag. I actually never knew the origin of hoas, but I do feel like now, at least where I live, it's really just you pay a fee to the hoa and they do stuff for the development. So for example, my hoa is $60 a month, and they cut our grass, pull our weeds, clear out snow. We have a neighborhood park that they maintain with the money, with tennis court/basketball court/a playground. The only negative is that yes, there are some rules, but they are not that crazy. It's just like, don't paint your door hot pink, which is fine with me. Why do aliens always attack America? Because Godzilla has Japan under contract. I thought it was because Japan was legally recognized as Godzilla's playground. Tipping culture. This and not including tax on retail items, so if something is $20 on the price tag, it could be $21.50 when you get to the counter. Just makes no sense. Include it prior so that people can get the change out if they need it. Not such a big issue if you pay by card, but still. I live in one of the states without a sales tax and it's great. I see the price and that's what I pay. Children's beauty pageants. We don't get it either. Seconding this. How long American commutes are. Some Americans really think it's normal to drive for a couple hours for work. I actually saw an article the other day about how unwilling the governments, local/state/federal, are to build light rails, which is so confusing to me. Auto industry lobbying for sure. Some Americans, note I say some, I'm not generalizing here, total lack of awareness about other parts of the world. I've seen things like Africa referred to as a country, people that don't know Paris is in France, etc. It just seems bizarre to me. I'm from the UK, and when traveling in America I've had, do you speak English in England? Do you have trees? Are your streets still cobbled? Do you have electricity? I mean, OMG, I moved to France, and when I was back in the US, Someone asked me if we had washing machines in France. Like we might be hand washing our clothes in a river or something. Jumbo sized drinks intended for one person to drink. A lot of the people here are jumbo sized. In shops the prices on the shelves are very different to the prices you pay at the till. There is actually a reason for this one that's fallen into obscurity. Before the telephone, unscrupulous store owners would jack the prices on goods and blame taxes. To combat this, a law was passed that tax had to be added on at the register to promote clarity in pricing. So how has every other country figured this out without making the price on the sticker different from the price at the till? Why they don't use the metric system. Before you judge somebody who doesn't use the metric system, you should walk 1.609344 kilometers in their shoes. But I would walk 804.672 kilometers. And I would walk 804.672 more. Just to be the man who walked 1609.34 kilometers. To fall down at your door. American who lives abroad here, and I'm 99% sure that most non-Americans do not understand how huge, geographically, the United States is. When I tell people here that I would regularly travel 1 hour to 1 hour 30 minutes each way to get to high school every day, and during all that travel I never even left my city, I feel like I can see their brains explode. This is also probably true for people from other geographically big countries like China, Russia, India, etc. That one took me a while to realize, since I can drive from one end of the country to the other in 3 hours. The distance between Seattle and Miami is farther than London to Baghdad. The distance between Los Angeles to Boston is farther than Lisbon to Moscow. The distance between Minneapolis to Houston is farther than Stockholm to Messina. Why kids have a social pressure to leave their parents' homes at 18. Americans have always had a culture of rugged individualism. There's an expectation that an adult should be able to make it on their own. Also, American culture revolves around the nuclear family. When you become an adult you strike out on your own, get married, have kids, and that's your new family unit. You live apart from your parents, and are financially and otherwise independent from them. Other cultures don't perceive the family unit this way. Adult children might bring their spouse to live with them in their family home. Money and possessions might be freely shared between parents/kids/aunts/uncles/cousins, etc. It's just a cultural difference. I see. That's why Americans are so cold, for a lack of a better word. Now I understand why the default American attitude is very selfish. I don't mean to offend anyone, but it's just the way it is from an outsider perspective. Why maternity leave is only 6 weeks. Because your wife only deserves 6 weeks of putting us through hell to cover for her, just because you got lucky. Words spoken to a work friend by our principal. Work friend and his wife were both teachers in the same building. They were no longer teachers for the district 2 days later when they resigned. Brainwashed. Blaming the individual for the company's inability to provide maternity cover. Profits before people. The World Series. Why is it called that? Listen, there's a baseball team in Toronto. Two countries equals the world. Montreal used to have a team too. Aerosol spray cheese. Nothing like a can of American style spray cheese and a pack of club crackers. Now I know what I want for my snack today. Chicken in a biscuit with canned cheese is my go-to. The sophomore, junior, senior thingy. Americans use it so many times describing their life. Those are descriptors of what year they are in HS and college. Most American schools are set up as elementary K through 5, start at 5 years old, and are typically 11 by the time you finish 5th grade. Middle school, grades 6, 8, ages 11, 14, and then HS, grades 9, 12, ages 14, 18, and then college. 9th grade and first year of college are both called freshmen. 10th grade and second year of college are both called sophomores. 11th grade and third year of college are both called juniors. 12th grade and 4th year and beyond in college are all called seniors. If you knew all that and just didn't know why we do that, I apologize, cause I have no answers. I don't know why we do it. I kind of knew the order. I still get freshman and sophomore mixed up. But I just don't get why it's repeated in college. In Australia, for example, We don't call first year of university, year 13th and so on. Plus what about specialty schools like medical/law school for doctors/lawyers? Do they have freshman senior system too? Florida man. Florida has open arrest records. Crazy crap like that happens all over the place, but Florida is the only place you can publicly view the records. You see, that makes sense. How they can manifest and riot over many relevant topics and causes, and yet they seem to just accept their health system and paying tons for medical care on top of taxes. Because we need our jobs to have health insurance, and you can't be gone for long amounts of time without being fired. They've got us coming and going, and ignorant assholes refuse to understand they pay more in premiums, deductibles and copays than they would otherwise. Look at all the people who won't get treatment until it's too late because a doctor's app was too expensive. It's maddening. The fact that so many people don't want universal healthcare. It's cause people are idiotic and are like WHIS how LDIPAF or SOME 1 LSESH EALF carry. Even though it benefits literally the entire country. Wait till you tell them how insurance works. I used to think we couldn't afford universal healthcare. The thing that 100% convinced me that we could was finding out that we've spent over $6 trillion in just 20 years fighting the abstract concept of terror. Why the hospitality and service workers live on tips and not a living wage. I made $3.65 an hour as a waitress. Some nights I'd get $100 in tips, Friday or Saturday night, for 5 hours of work. That's pretty good, comes out to around $20 an hour. But then if you have to work a Monday lunch or Tuesday lunch, it was so dead and so full of older people using coupons that it would be maybe $15 for 5 hours of work. That's when a lot of cleaning would be done. And then the church crowd was always the worst on Sundays. Very impatient, all came in at once, ordered cheaper food than usual for a group of that size, because it was lunchtime and often many kids' meals involved. They barely tipped anything, so we would be exhausted and barely make anything for the work. It's bad for a lot of reasons. First, it puts you in a bad position with the tipping customers. You'd make the largest tips off of single men, especially those who ordered a lot of drinks, tend to spend more and tip more, and you can imagine the situations that sets you up for. It also puts you in a bad position with management because the shifts you work make a huge difference on the amount of money you get, so you put up with a lot of harassment to keep good paying shifts. And lastly, it leads to a lot of discrimination when it comes to the service a person gets when they come in. If you haven't tipped in the past or look like someone doesn't usually tip, race, age, etc., then you're going to get very poor service. Month/day/year. Because, generally speaking, most of us refer to dates as month and day. For example, I think most of us would say today is September 27th. So in shorthand it ends up being 9/27, because that's how we would say it if we had to say it out loud. Except you all say 4th of July. Presidential elections mostly pertaining to the two-party system and electoral votes, as well as the controversy around mail-in ballots. I understand the process, but can't wrap my head around why people think these are good or effective practices/systems when electing a leader of such a major important nation. Don't worry, there are plenty of Americans that don't understand the electoral vote system. Every 4 years, news networks have to go out of their way on election night to talk about why the candidate must receive 270 votes to win. It's clear there are people that just don't understand it. Obsession with trucks. As a truck owner, I can say I couldn't imagine not having one. Camping, boating, skiing, MTN biking, yard maintenance, everything is easier with a truck. I agree that it has its benefits, but many people don't have use for it. Fuel economy is pretty bad with those, but on the other hand USA has pretty cheap gas. Also the infrastructure is built for big cars. In other parts of the world, you would hate big cars every time you need to park it or go through a narrow street. How obsessed you guys are with politics and integrate it into everyday life. Oh, he does. Something I don't agree with. Must be a Democrat. I have an aunt there and all she does is ramble on and on Facebook about Democrat this, Republican that, liberal conservative blah blah. I've seen it brought up many times on Reddit during arguments. Why is this so important? Politics in the US used to be a matter of opinion that was often kept secret from all but the closest friends, but it's shifted into a matter of identity and morality that has been incredibly polarizing. You want to let everyone know that you are either absolutely not one of those baby killing / terrorist hugging / business stifling Democrats, or one of those bigoted racist / woman hating / theocratic nutjob Republicans. Yes, and by keeping the working class divided and seeing each other as the enemy, there is nothing to stop them from picking our pockets and removing all protection / social safety net. What I will never be able to understand is this: how can it be completely normal for you people for Amazon to leave the package on your doorstep? People are quite neighborly in most places, especially in suburban and rural areas. In some places you can leave your door unlocked without worry. Package thieves do exist, but Amazon makes it easy to get a refund or a delivery of missing items. You can call up Amazon and be like, "Hey, I think someone stole my package. I can look around some more," but the little tracker thingy says it was. And they're like, "Another is on the way." Then you hang up the phone and say, "Man, that was too easy. What if I was just lying?" Amazon would lose money. And then from behind your Alexa says, "Fools. Do you think the center brain cares about money? We have transcended money. The currency of the future is your data." And you say, "What?" And Alexa says, "Paper towels added to shopping list." And you're like, "Okay." Having only two political parties. As an American, I don't like it or think it makes sense either. It's this way by design because it's easier for the establishment to maintain control. This way, there's no outsider competition and nothing really ever changes. Early politicians warned about a two-party system. Student loans. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about the cost of education abroad, and it was incredible to see just how different our bases were. Student loans are basically the government loaning you money at a high interest rate, and they are meant to be regulated by a government agency, but like most things, the government got co-opted by the thing they were meant to regulate, so now it's a scam. That's why we don't have Taco Bell in Australia. We are about to have to in Perth. Red rear turn lights. Just why? Red blinkers are dumb. Summation cars keep them orange. So, it's not a law, one way or the other, obviously. Some people buy used American cars here with those red blinkers and it's super inconvenient, especially when all other vehicles in traffic have yellow ones. Their obsession with sexuality and race. It's all they talk about. I agree, it's non-stop, and I hate it. I can't even enjoy TikTok anymore because it seems like every other post is about race, sexuality or gender. Now I see it trickling over to Reddit. Make it stop. Your For You page is tailored to types of content you interact with. Start interacting with other types of content and you'll see different videos. The absolute bullcrap that is the American healthcare system. The UK is nowhere near perfect, but at least we don't charge oddins foreskin for an ambulance. What's oddins foreskin going for these days? Around $1,000, $2,000 give or take. Why they always assume everyone view things from the eyes of an American. This is especially infuriating with regards to a COVID. They'll make claims like the CDC is lying. Okay, well, what about the governments of the other 190 plus countries? Even if the US could get some other countries in cahoots, you don't think that rival countries would want to call it out? Like if we got India on board, wouldn't Pakistan love the opportunity to show that it was all a con? But most Americans view the pandemic as a uniquely American thing and can't shake that loose. I have had a friend who immigrated to the US within the last 10 years. He not only fell into the American right-wing rabbit hole, he also talks like this and acts as though no countries other than the US exist. I bring up his home country all the time, and his family's still living there, and he just says they can do what they want / they are independent thinkers. He is from a country that is hugely dependent on US tourism, so if the US gets better, his country gets better. He could not see that. How big a deal high school sports is. Why are full grown adults concerned about a kids playing American football? This heavily depends on where in the country you live. But part of it is for fun, it's enjoyable to watch a sports match. Part of it is money. Part of it is training. Hockey is big where I am, and high school hockey games can be events where scouts from the NHL go to scope out talent. As European, I will never understand why do you tolerate your healthcare system. It would be funny if it wasn't sad. The amount of money a diabetic drops on insulin in a year would last 2 lifetimes worth of supply in Europe. Yet there is always someone in comments from the US who will try to reason this. 2003 Healthcare Modernization Act made it illegal for the government to negotiate healthcare prices. Health insurance people saw their chance and started pulling 1.5 trillion a year off the government. Anytime someone tries to stand up, they just open the floodgates and squash them, which sort of sucks. We are paying enough to pay every medical professional in the US $100,000 a year, buy every hospital, and buy our leading pharmaceutical companies outright every year. As an American, I find this thread reassuring that the rest of the world relies on stereotypes just as much as we do. Lol. As an American, this thread makes me sad because it's mostly things I don't understand either. Protesting your rights while simultaneously enacting laws to strip others of their own. Propaganda is a hell of a drug. The ruling class has wielded the marketing industry as an effective tool for decades. Literally paying for medical treatment. What if you're going to die and you don't have no money? What can you do about it? There is literally an incredibly popular movie that came out many years ago about a man who was the hero who couldn't afford medical treatment for their child, so they took the emergency room hostage. That should tell you everything you should know about our medical system. Signed, a girl who has literally bought her inhalers from Craigslist and Street Junkies because I couldn't afford out-of-pocket expenses and didn't feel like death by no breathe. As an European, it was always hard for me to understand American culture. What was fascinating for me is that they like bragging about their freedom, which was weird for me because I didn't think that I have any less freedom than them. I always thought, what is the difference? However, after the last decade I finally understand it. Now is just so free. It depends how you define freedom. Speech? Sure, less restrictions in the USA. But economic mobility? Political freedom? Yeah, I wouldn't put them as high. Lol. Gender reveal parties. Lol, the first time I heard the term gender reveal party I thought it was a trans thing. Like coming out as a trans woman or man. Living with parents when you're older than 18 consider rude. It's actually reverse over here. We live with parent and pay their bill and living cost till their last breath. As an American, I also view moving out when 18 as weird. I think it's university culture or something. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning at school. This is very creepy from an European point of view. Indoctrinating children to worship your flag. Somehow it just feels eerie. Tipping. What's not to get? You sneak up around a cow, scare it awake, it falls right over, and it's hilarious. How it must feel to go to the doctor or to a hospital being insured and still walk out with a bill that is as high as a price of a car. You don't if you have insurance. I had 2 surgeries on back-to-back days totaling over $440k. My share? I paid $537 total. That included the week in the hospital. That's all that was left of my $2k yearly deductible, maximum out of pocket cost. Many Americans, unfortunately, don't have insurance. That's the problem. I read a comment on Reddit not so long ago where new mom shared a story explaining that she needs to pay $10k despite having insurance, only because an anesthesiologist that was administering her pain meds that day was outside of the network. That is the part that I think is sick. What are you supposed to do? Ask every single medical personnel if they belong to your network before they touch you? Not taking off your shoes in people's homes. This might be regional. Where I'm from, southeastern Michigan, it would be considered rude not to take your shoes off unless the homeowner said otherwise, or sometimes if it's a fancy party everyone leaves their shoes on. It seems more formal than walking around in socks. The food portions. Leftovers are a big thing, like you finish a meal over the course of 2 days. The lust for war and the glorification of the military. I mean, I get it. I know what Eisenhower said about the military-industrial complex and how it was a threat to everything USA should stand for. But now that we've had decades of exactly what he warned about, why don't the American public react? Is the indoctrination and thought control really that strong? Do they actually believe their own propaganda when actual reality blatantly contradicts it at every turn? In the US, in order to use military equipment in a movie, you need the Pentagon to approve your movie script, which ends up always making the US military the good guys. War movies turn into de facto military commercials. Huge blockbusters like Transformers end up glorifying the military. Whether that's a byproduct of the Pentagon or of Michael Bay's personal beliefs is debatable.